Pemirsa, inilah headline news pukul 23 waktu Indonesia Barat. Ratusan orang yang dievakuasi dari Afghanistan tiba di Belgia setelah sebelumnya diangkut dari Islamabad, Pakistan, pemirsa. Dua pesawat mengangkut 226 orang dari Afghanistan tiba di Bandara Militer Mossburg di dekat Brussels. Mereka diangkut dari Islamabad, Pakistan menjadi tempat sementara bagi warga yang dievakuasi dari Afghanistan. Setelah turun dari pesawat, pemirsa, mereka langsung dibawa menggunakan bus ke tempat penampungan untuk menjalani proses administrasi. Ratusan orang yang dievakuasi dari Afghanistan ini juga diwajibkan mengikuti tes COVID-19. Satu pesawat kembali ke Islamabad untuk mengangkut kembali orang-orang yang melarikan diri dari Afghanistan. Australia, pemirsa, mengaku mengevakuasi orang-orang dari Kabul, Afghanistan karena situasi yang semakin tidak kondusif. Meski demikian, pemerintah Australia tetap melanjutkan operasi evakuasi terhadap warga mereka dan juga orang-orang yang bekerja untuk pemerintah Australia. Pemerintah Australia akhirnya bisa mengevakuasi 450 orang dari Kabul, Afghanistan pada tengah malam setelah sebelumnya terkendala situasi yang semakin tidak kondusif. Mereka yang dievakuasi dari Kabul terdiri dari warga Australia, warga Afghanistan yang bekerja untuk pemerintah Australia dan juga para pekerja kemanusiaan. Australia sudah berbicara dengan Amerika Serikat terkait dengan perpanjangan waktu evakuasi warga dari Kabul. Sebelumnya, Taliban akan mengambil alih seluruh Afghanistan, termasuk kawasan bandara, setelah tanggal 31 Agustus mendatang.
There are many women and children that we've been able to get out of Afghanistan.
Demikian headline saat ini, pemirsa. Kami akan kembali untuk Anda 1 jam mendatang. Sampai jumpa.
Metro Globe Network, bringing Indonesia to the world. Metro Globe Network, captured towards futures, a part of Media Group News.
Pemirsa, Metro TV menyelenggarakan pelatihan jurnalistik untuk tetaplah bersama kami di Breaking News Metro TV.
Dengarkan Metro TV di radio, more than just news. Streaming sekarang di metrotvnews.com dan medcom.id.
Warnai hari-hari Anda dengan nuansa tayangan kami yang inspiratif,
putting yourself on the table is very important.
Atraktif, penuh ide-ide kreatif, dan yang bakal bikin suasana makin rileks. Semuanya bisa dinikmati di Magna Channel melalui TV digital Anda.
We want resettlement! We want bright future! We want resettlement! We want justice! Judicial justice! Judicial justice! Refugee status for Afghan people! Refugee status for Afghan people! Refugee status for Afghan people! We want our rights! We want our rights!
Hello, good evening and welcome to World News on Metro Globe Network. We are live from Jakarta, Indonesia. I'm Amanda Chininta and here are tonight's top stories. A panicked stampede outside Kabul's airport leaves at least 7 people dead. Catastrophic floods in Tennessee kill at least 22 people. We begin tonight's program from Afghanistan, where crowds of desperate people remain camped outside Kabul's airport. At least 7 people died over the weekend amid a panicked stampede to enter its gates. Some people were trampled while others suffocated or had heart attacks as Taliban fighters fired into the air to try to drive back the crowds. These images show British soldiers covering the bodies of those crushed and treating to the injured. Other troops stood on concrete barriers, trying to calm the crowds. Thousands have chaotically flocked to Kabul's airport since the Taliban's takeover of the city. Several Afghans plunged to their deaths last week after clinging to a U.S. military cargo plane as it took off. This weekend, the Taliban blamed the deaths of Afghan citizens at the airport on the U.S., saying there is no need for Afghans to fear them. And tonight, the militants are issuing a stark warning. The U.S. must respect the August 31st troop withdrawal deadline. If they don't, they would be crossing a red line. While President Joe Biden has promised to withdraw troops by August 31st, he has since said that troops may need to stay beyond the date to finish evacuating all Americans from the country. As thousands of people scramble to leave Afghanistan amid the Taliban takeover, a refugee crisis is brewing. VOA's Arif Aslan visited 30 Afghan refugees whose long perilous trek had taken them to eastern Turkey. Besan Hamdard narrates this report.
The influx of Afghan refugees into Turkey is continuing. Tatvan in Bitlis province has become the second most important crossing point for Afghan refugees after Van province. Refugees come to this town by boat or on foot and then attempt to travel to the west of Turkey. Following the Taliban's rapid progression in Afghanistan, these young Afghans became refugees. They have traveled over 3,500 kilometers crossing Iran's border as well as Turkey's to get here. The majority of them, who are under the age of 18, say life under the Taliban is intolerable.
You can't leave home to go to a store at night under the Taliban. You can't take your sick to a hospital during the night. They force beards on you, and if you shave, then they will beat you.
Members of the Afghanistan's army are among the refugees here, saying that they have left Afghanistan so that they would not be killed by the Taliban. One among those who was injured during his service is Muhibullah.
I was stationed in Farah province, then I went to Orazgan and got hit with a roadside bomb and got shot at. I even have a bullet in my hand. Now that the Taliban have taken over, I escaped and came here.
Afghan refugees fleeing their homeland cross the Pakistani border, then Iran, and finally the Turkish border. It can take months for them to reach their destination. At the very least, the smugglers demand $1,000 from each of them. Most here say they were robbed on the way as well.
I gave $1,500 to a smuggler and came here, and now I don't have shoes on my feet, just sandals. I jumped off a mountain and now have back pain.
It has been a month since we came. We came over the mountains, facing lots of hardship to get here. There was too much fighting in our country. From one side, the Taliban would hit, and from the other side, the government. So I came here in hopes to achieve something.
The next day, several refugees set off toward western Turkey in the hopes of finding a brighter future. For Arif Aslan in Bitlis, Turkey, Bejan Hamdard, VOA News.
Moving on now to the U.S. state of Tennessee, where catastrophic floods have killed at least 22 people. Rescue crews are frantically searching for the dozens of people who remain missing. This is Humphreys County, one of the hardest hit areas on Saturday, receiving more than 40 centimeters of rain in less than 24 hours. The flooding turned creeks into raging rapids, demolishing homes and cars and taking out cell phone towers and telephone lines. Among the 22 people who lost their lives were twin 7-month-old babies who were swept from their father's arms. As search and rescue operations continue, authorities say they expect the death toll to rise. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the U.S., Tropical Storm Henry has been slamming the Northeast, causing flash flooding from New Jersey to Massachusetts. The storm has swamped roads, closed bridges, and left people stranded in their vehicles. More than 140,000 homes have also lost power. Authorities rescued nearly 90 people in New Jersey, where some communities received as much as 20 centimeters of rain. Henry has now weakened into a tropical depression, but the National Hurricane Center says some areas could still see up to 30 centimeters of rain through tomorrow. Violence erupted on Saturday during a demonstration at the Gaza-Israeli border. Israeli gunfire wounded more than 40 Palestinians, including a 13-year-old boy who was shot in the head. Malaysia's new prime minister has been sworn in, bringing back the rule of the country's largest governing political party.
Bahawa saya akan dengan jujur menunaikan kewajipan-kewajipan jawatan itu dengan segala daya upaya saya. Kini bermula.
Ismail Sabri Yaakob, who served as Deputy Prime Minister under Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin, who resigned last week, took office on Saturday after securing a slim majority in Parliament. The United Malay National Organization political faces a tall task in uniting a polarized society and reviving a slumping economy. In his first national address, Ismail called for unity, urging lawmakers to cross party lines to help the nation recover. Ismail also faces the challenge of curbing Malaysia's worsening pandemic. The country has among the highest number of daily COVID cases per capita in the world, despite months under a state of emergency and lockdown. Still ahead on world news, hundreds of anti-lockdown protesters clashed with police in Melbourne and Sydney. We have the details after the break.
Sekarang tua itu tak ditentukan umur, tapi dari usia otot. Yuk ikuti Ensure Stand for Strength untuk tahu usia otot Anda. Mulai! Minum Ensure 2 kali sehari. Nutrisi seimbang dengan triple protein dan tinggi kalsium untuk bantu jaga kekuatan otot dan tulang yang menurun seiring usia dan jaga daya tahan tubuh agar tetap aktif sepanjang hari. Kunjungi ensure.co.id dan cek usia otot Anda sekarang.
Penting untuk mengenali perubahan yang muncul dalam tubuh. Misalnya, Anda sering mengalami buang air kecil. Pasalnya kerap diidentikan dengan penyakit diabetes.
Saya Fauzi Abdullah. Usia saya 55 tahun. Tiap hari buang air kecil 10-15 kali. Kata teman saya, diabetes tuh. Pas saya cek, benar saya mengalami diabetes.
Simak pembahasan solusinya dalam Go Healthy. Sering berkemih, hati-hati diabetes. Selasa, 24 Agustus, jam 6:30 pagi.
Kualitas tidur itu penting untuk kesehatan. Minum Antangin Good Night sebelum tidur dengan kandungan bahan alam. Bantu perbaiki kualitas tidur dan redakan gejala masuk angin. Antangin Good Night.
Selama tidak menjaga lingkungan, jangan mimpi lihat yang indah. Kurangi sampah dari rumah mulai sekarang.
Kenapa sih kita harus berinvestasi di PIK 2? Ada 3 alasan utama. Yang pertama, lokasi PIK 2. Alasan kedua, setiap orang yang membeli PIK 2 dianggap sebagai pemegang saham. Membeli produk PIK 2 memang selalu untung karena harga perdana PIK 2 50% di bawah harga market. Alasan yang ketiga, fasilitas. Di mana fasilitas yang tersedia di PIK 2 jauh lebih banyak dari real estate manapun juga.
Mbak Puan tidak perlu pakai baliho karena Mbak Puan sudah sangat dan relatif terkenal. Tidak hanya sebagai pimpinan atau ketua DPR.
Mengenai kondisi sulit, tapi ada elit yang bisa menggunakan uang miliaran atau puluhan miliar untuk kebutuhan dirinya narsis, itu akan diefek berat.
Bersama Zilvia Iskandar, saksikan Indonesia Town Hall, hasrat politik tabrak empati, besok jam 8 malam. Oh ya, buat kalian yang udah di mobil mau berangkat, jangan lupa safety belt-nya dipakai ya. Terus, cek juga ban, rem, dan pastinya harus selalu jaga jarak aman sama mobil lain. Selalu hati-hati di jalan raya karena ada orang tercinta yang selalu menunggu.
Semua ujian pasti ada ujungnya. Vaksin untuk Indonesia.
Setiap Jumat jam 8 malam.
And welcome back to World News. Vietnam's Ho Chi Minh City has started a strict lockdown to curb a worsening surge of the COVID-19 pandemic. Just hours before the lockdown began, Vietnam reported its highest daily COVID death toll since the start of the pandemic. Ho Chi Minh City had already been in lockdown since June, but under the new measures, people in high-risk districts are not allowed to leave home at all for at least 2 weeks. Authorities have deployed police and troops to help deliver food and aid to households. Vietnam is experiencing its worst outbreak of the pandemic. Since the end of April, the country has reported 344,000 confirmed cases, with Ho Chi Minh City and the neighboring city of Bien Duong accounting for most of the new infections. Right now, more than half the country is in lockdown to contain the virus. Meanwhile, hundreds of performers and festival organizers held demonstrations across the Netherlands on Saturday to protest what they say are unfair restrictions that have forced the cancellation of music festivals and other events. The protesters demand festivals to resume to full capacity starting in September, pointing to events in other countries and the return of crowds to soccer stadiums as evidence that people can congregate in large numbers without infection numbers surging. The government has banned large-scale events such as festivals until at least September 19th, amid fears over the spread of the Delta variant. One-day events with a maximum of 750 visitors are allowed for people with a COVID-19 app showing they have been vaccinated, have recently tested negative, or have recovered from the virus. Moving on now to Australia, protesters clashed with police in Melbourne and Sydney on Saturday as they gathered to rally against lockdowns. In Melbourne, police used pepper spray to try and hold back more than 4,000 protesters as they surged towards police lines. Meanwhile, in Sydney, police deployed up to 1,500 officers to prevent small groups of protesters from gathering. Police say more than 200 protesters have been arrested and 6 officers have been hospitalized as a result of the clashes. Amid the protests, New South Wales this weekend recorded its 2 highest daily records for infections. Sydney has been in a lockdown for more than 2 months as Australia grapples with outbreaks of the highly transmissible Delta variant. Volunteers in Kenya are working to counter misinformation on the coronavirus among people living with HIV, the virus that causes AIDS. Social media posts have been circulating harmful false claims that the use of antiretroviral drugs to treat HIV can also prevent and even cure COVID-19. VOA's Victoria Amunga has more.
The Kenya AIDS non-governmental organization consortium KANCO has been hosting regular forums to educate HIV patients on preventing coronavirus infections. The group says the need came because of false claims in social media that antiretroviral drugs used to treat HIV also prevent or even cure COVID-19.
They are like COVID is a virus, and HIV on its own is a virus itself. So they are like, if these drugs are antiviral, why aren't they covering up for, why are they covering up for the HIV alone? So me, I tend to believe if I'm on ARV for HIV, the same drug can work on the COVID and that's a very, very big misconception on the same.
HIV patient Jen, not her real name, has been using antiretroviral drugs ARVs for 5 years. She fell for social media claims that ARVs will protect her from COVID, partly because she was afraid to take the vaccine.
I am now ready to take the vaccine because we went in for training where we were educated that the moment you get vaccinated, your chances of getting COVID are lower than the one who isn't vaccinated.
Kenyan authorities are campaigning to counter the falsehood through community sensitization and media.
We've been especially using our social media pages to try and highlight frequently asked questions. We want to improve that by trying to make it a little bit lively, so that people can engage with one or two people who are able to answer real-time any kind of misinformation they may be having.
Kanko's Key Population Project has also been reaching out to HIV patients.
We went through a process of trying to reach out to people, even in their homes, using the peers. And in our health centers, we have within the static sites, we have a clinician or the counselors who were charged with the responsibility of conveying correct information about COVID as part of their routine service delivery.
Activists and authorities hope to reach the estimated 1.5 million Kenyans living with HIV with accurate information on coronavirus. Victoria Amunga for VOA News, Nairobi.
Coming up on our top entertainment news, Hurricane Henry shortens a Central Park concert.
Kami selalu hadir untuk Anda. Di saat sibuk work from home, beraktivitas kerja di kantor, dalam perjalanan melawan kemacetan, dan para pejuang yang sedang membangun mimpi. Bisnis Indonesia e-paper selalu menemanimu. Download e-paper Bisnis Indonesia sekarang.
Pemirsa, tidak ada bosan-bosannya kami selalu mengajak Anda untuk selalu peduli tentang jantung dan juga stroke.
Untuk itulah, kami juga senantiasa menghadirkan narasumber yang dapat menjadi pembelajaran bagi Anda dan juga keluarga.
Dr. Laser dan Rumah Sakit Mitra Keluarga Kalideres mengundang Anda untuk melakukan medical check-up screening jantung dan juga stroke dengan diskon 50%.
Saksikan terus Go Healthy setiap hari jam 6.30 waktu Indonesia Barat, dan pengumuman kode voucher diskon medical check-up akan Anda dapatkan pada akhir acara.
Go Healthy, cara tepat hidup sehat.
Kualitas tidur itu penting untuk kesehatan. Minum Antangin Good Night sebelum tidur dengan kandungan bahan alam. Bantu perbaiki kualitas tidur dan redakan gejala masuk angin. Antangin Good Night.
Warnai hari-hari Anda dengan nuansa tayangan kami yang inspiratif,
Putting yourself on the table is very important.
atraktif, penuh ide-ide kreatif, dan yang bakal bikin suasana makin rileks. Semuanya bisa dinikmati di Magna Channel melalui TV digital Anda.
Miliki gudang multiguna at Peak 2 Bispark. Hadir dengan layout yang fungsional. Bisa difungsikan sebagai gudang, kantor, dan rumah sekaligus. Hanya 3,5 menit menuju interchange. Hanya 18 menit menuju Bandara Internasional Soekarno-Hatta. Miliki gudang multiguna ukuran 6x20 meter. Dengan harga spesial 2,5 miliar rupiah. Kunjungi show unit kami. Hubungi 021 588 8000.
Banyak nelayan tidak bisa melaut karena kondisi perahunya tidak layak pakai. Nelayan membutuhkan perahu yang berkualitas agar mereka bisa kembali produktif. Melalui program Susi Cek Ombak, saya Susi Pujiastuti mengajak Anda berdonasi melalui rekening Yayasan Benih Baik Indonesia, Nelayan Berseri Laut Lestari.
Mari ubah perilaku. Pakai masker untuk lindungi kita semua.
Welcome back to World News. In our top entertainment news tonight, two-time Oscar winner Michael Caine is handed the Lifetime Achievement Award at the Karlovy Vary International Film Festival in the Czech Republic. K-pop star Bobby of Icon announces he is marrying and expecting a child. Hurricane Henry shortens a Barry Manilow set at a Central Park concert.
Michael Caine was honored with a Crystal Globe over the weekend at the opening of the Karlovy Vary International Film Festival in the Czech Republic. The two-time Oscar winner felt humbled to be given an award for a life which he never expected. The Crystal Globe was presented to Caine for outstanding artistic contribution to world cinema, and he joins a number of other well-established actors who have been honored with the award, including Robert Redford, Robert De Niro, Michael Douglas, Danny DeVito, Judi Dench, Susan Sarandon, and Harvey Keitel, as well as many others. The Karlovy Vary International Film Festival runs from the 20th to the 28th of August, 2021. Bobby of K-pop band Icon made a surprise statement over the weekend, announcing he is marrying and expecting a child in September. He uploaded a handwritten Korean post on his personal Instagram. Bobby's real name is Kim Ji-won. In previous years, K-pop stars married. A 5-hour concert intended to celebrate New York City's recovery from the coronavirus pandemic was about halfway through.
That's it for World News Tonight. Thank you for watching us here on Metro Globe Network. I'm Amanda Chininta signing out. Stay safe and see you tomorrow.